How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I'm going to go and do the gameplay and review of this new Zikz 566A. So it's one of the two trucks we've been given in this new Phase 9 maps. It's on Burned Forest in like the top corner. Yeah, we'll get stuck into it and see how it does. Engine-wise, there is actually quite a few. I think the top three are like S+, but they get even less, I don't know, good with the fuel. It's a terrible way of explaining it. I went for the one that drinks the most fuel, basically. High range gearbox I've gone for. The suspension, there is a raised option, which, yeah, does it a little bit. It does actually. I don't know if it actually locks you off from having the other tyres or not, but either way, I'm going to keep it raised. That's what she said, of course. Tyres, there is actually like its own custom set, which I'm going to use obviously for some of the video. I'm going to be on snowy maps for some, so I'll be using the chained, even though they are what I'd consider like the crappy version of chained. They haven't given us like, which is odd because it is actually a Russian vehicle, but they haven't given us a mud version of the chained. The winch, just the best one. Diff lock's already on. The spare wheel, it does actually sit there. There is room for it in that. I think if you can have like the crane and a saddle and that, like that tyre might get in the way. For all this add-on stuff, you've got a repair body, a one slot sideboard. The crane, you can actually have both, like you can see there, but I don't think that's when like the spare tyre wouldn't fit on. You can also have a crane and the saddle, so you could take a trailer. Might be a bit of a squeeze, depending on the trailer. It might get close to hitting the crane, but it should just about be alright. And then you've got like a fuel tanker thing, and then a water, like it carries 1800 litres of water, which because it's part of like the new sort of firefighter truck things for Phase 9. Rooftop stuff, like you can add fuel tanks to the roof. That's like 140 litres, like a roof rack. Got spotlights and stuff. Of all the bumpers, in the end I left it as the original bumper just because I think it was like sort of smoother and neater and all the rest of it. The look of the other bumpers are alright. Oh yeah, with the exhaust, by the way, there's none actually selected. If you can buy one of those two, they're like tall stacks that sort of go above the cab. Can make it a little bit more awkward when you roll a vehicle, so I'm just not equipping any, and then the standard one I think just runs a pipe like under the chassis sort of out near the back. You'll see where the smoke comes out when I'm driving. Colours, all the normal ones, and then you've got like a blue and black, white and black, red and white, yellow and brownish colour, and then this blue and black. I think for the most part I go in this yellow one for whatever reason. Well, yeah, it looks alright. Well, truck-wise, I think it looks pretty cool. It sits quite nice and tall considering it's a pretty small truck, and you can see all like the fuel tanks and everything does kind of sit quite neat in the chassis, so it shouldn't really catch too much because it's got quite a short wheelbase and everything as well. Inside looks pretty old. You have actually got a window out the back though, so you can, like, if you like your first person view driving, you can see what you're doing. I don't even think there is a passenger mirror. As for this one, there's a tiny little mirror, but it's as near as useless. If you stick your head out the cab though, there's a bit of a fire extinguisher in the way, but you can actually see the garage and my own tyres and all the rest of it, so I could see if they're wheel spinning in first person. The horn, not bad for a little truck this size. Yeah, that'll do. It's not too bad. Revving wise, there is no rev counter as far as I could tell. I don't think any of those dials. One of the dials like turns on in the middle of the cab when you start the truck, but it's not revving up and down or anything. The obviously big dial in the middle is like a speedo. All the other ones seem to be staying still, so I don't know if it's a slow rever or a quick one. And setting off, at least got the high range gearbox, so it's pretty pokey, and I was kind of stuck it in high, drifting around there. Some trucks can already lose their balance a bit there. This one, whether it's from like the balanced out grip and weight and all the rest of it, it sort of did a little drift, but yeah, quite nice. It's not like a ridiculously unstable vehicle or anything. Trailers, you can have obviously like everything that's towable, and then all the saddle low stuff as well. There's no saddle high option, but yeah, it wouldn't really make sense on this truck anyway. Setting off, sort of skids around here, even though it does like a little drift now, like I remember the Voron Grad did back in the day. It actually keeps quite a nice pace on this mud here. Even like I'm still in auto. The sort of odd thing about the high range on this is obviously the high range on most vehicles is 8 gears. This one has 6 gears. It's like a custom gearbox in a way, but it just still just calls it like the normal high range one. For the most part, yeah, it works out pretty nicely. Like I say, it was actually keeping a nice pace on that mud back there, and cutting through here as well. I believe at the minute, yeah, I got like the custom tyres you can get. But yeah, got through that mud pretty nicely, stayed in high gear, kept its momentum going. Even cutting along here, it's ticking along quite nicely. Certainly a lot quicker. Like, for example, I mean, yesterday I didn't even finish getting the footage until about 9 in the morning, so by the time editing, I mean, I've spent most of tonight doing it. It wouldn't have been out until like the afternoon, hence why I just finishing it off tonight. But you can actually, like with the Derry 15C special thing, it was a lot slower to get the footage, so there was like less I could add overall. This one, even though the video is quite long in the end, I was and ahhing what to edit. But yeah, I can sort of fit more in. That's what she said, of course. But yeah, it's true. She was right to say it. Killing trees, I managed to kill one and then it stopped me. I went for another go, killed one tree, but the engine takes damage quite quickly really. It's got 100 health, but when you do hit it like that, you can take, it depends, 22 there, but yeah, it doesn't take all that many, and your engine's knackered. I recovered to the garage and drove back there because I'd kind of killed it on the first trees. Going around here, the power's pretty quick, so you can see it starts flicking mud up. And I probably floored it a bit too long, so I did actually kind of dig myself into the mud a bit there, sort of buried myself. I think if I jumped out of high quick enough, I would have just carried on. Most trucks do actually wheel spin there. Some of the few exceptions are like that Derry 15C, because it was so slow it never really got fast enough to wheel spin there. But yeah, pretty normal. Like I said, I did floor it for a little bit longer than probably some, so I did use a winch just to pull me out of the little ruts I dug, but once I had, it kind of got out of there under its own steam. And going along here for like a little rock test. Considering this thing's got a pretty nice pace to it, there is definitely taking bits of damage, like here, there and everywhere, ones, twos, nothing too crazy. I've got to be honest, the lack of pace in the game recently, I quite like the fact that this thing has got a nice speed to it, and I don't really care if I'm taking 1 damage, 2 damage here and there. You can see by the time I've gone through all those rocks, like there's barely any suspension health missing. Yeah, going along here, I mean, because it has got a custom kind of gearbox really, 6 gears, so it's not going like crazy sort of Jeff special mode fast. Smash into anti-terrorist barricade, give me a good old whack, I'll give it that. I kind of had to quickly steer out of it to stop myself from tipping. Here though, I mean, it creeps along. Most trucks do there. Funnily enough, the exception probably the Derry 15C. That was about one of the few places that thing is pretty rapid. But yeah, overall not great in mud. You can see now you can get through it, but it's certainly not setting any lap records really. I think there's a little bit of weight to this truck, but it's not a lot. I mean, it is just a little 4-wheeled truck, so I wouldn't expect loads, but yeah, it's not planting itself in the mud enough to kind of generate enough grip. Driving over here though to the farm, I just left that extra little bit in because it was actually, the thing does tick along quite nicely down these sort of dirt roads and all the rest of it. There's certain maps and stuff it's clearly not that well suited to, but yeah, like this sort of map, and to be fair, probably Albany River. I've not driven it loads on Albany River, but it going down those sort of dirt lanes, it picks up quite a nice speed. Like I said, it's a good balance with a high range. I think at first I was able to knock, was it 4 trees down? 4 or 5, and you said I already nearly killed my engine by then. Went for 1 more, but that kind of helped finish off the engine even more really. And then I tried to go for another, but it just couldn't get up enough speed. And I don't know why the tree is leaking. Start ramming wood, things get moist. Story of my life. I don't know what it's doing, but yeah, I noticed it, so I left it in. For the sort of snow test really on Northport, I actually got through that bit quite nice. It's about here where the snow kind of changes and slows vehicles down. It clearly did slow it down, but not to a ridiculous amount. Scouts get caught out quite a lot in that little bit and can barely move in that snow. It sits tall enough to climb over these barriers, even this one as well, which is a little bit kind of taller on that side. It clears like its steps and its fuel tanks and all the rest of it, so yeah, considering it's a fairly compact vehicle, that's pretty respectable. Turning's not too bad on it. Obviously I've got the chain tyres on now because I'm on the snow and like these icy maps. Bumping up there, some vehicles can tip as I kind of throw it in up there. Sort of shows you similar here. It's not terrible. There has been slower vehicles, but because it's not the heaviest of vehicles, it's not really digging into the snow all that well. That bush as well, it's struggling to push its way through that, which, let's be honest, you don't want to be struggling to push your way into a bush. But that does catch out a lot of the smaller vehicles. But now the bit of snow, I mean, it does go pretty slow there. But again, I've seen a few worse. I wouldn't expect that much better from it, really. It's yeah, it's just safe to say it's not terrible in snow, but it's just the lighter vehicles always kind of suffer the same thing, really. Like, this thing's competitors is like that TUZ Action or whatever the hell, however you're supposed to pronounce it. The Warthog and that Tatra, is it 805 or the 815? And what else was there? Oh yeah, that newish Crocodile. I still need to review that. Yeah, well and truly missed the boat on that one, really. Jumping over there though, because it sits nice and tall and all the rest of it, and the bumper doesn't really get in the way. It did bump over those pipes and yeah, made it over the wall pretty gracefully. Still had some health left, didn't just auto delete its suspension or anything. However, going through these trees, it was not a fan of trees. These branches are just catching it, and because it's not a massive vehicle, so sometimes the bigger stuff catches like the branches that are a little bit taller that are quite restrictive, but really this thing should just slip right through as for its size and all the rest of it. The fact that it's really not liking it. In the end I had to do a winch from like the back of the truck to the tree out there just to kind of pull it through, so yeah, not great. I mean, to be fair, the branches in this game are OP beast mode branches, but if I had to go to a section where I've got to cut through a lot of dense forest, then yeah, this wouldn't be too high on my list. As for the turning circle in the garage, the yard, that's pretty good actually, because I normally floor it and turn, but to be fair, I think for some of the more recent vehicles I end up feathering the throttle a little bit just to help make it in one go. That one I pretty much floored it the whole way and it still made it, so I could have probably got a tighter turning circle if I was just blipping the throttle a bit. But yeah, it's certainly enough to turn around in a yard, and it actually ticks on quite nicely for, you know, a 5-slot cargo, 5 cargo. And even along here as well, there's definitely times with this, because it's quite a small vehicle, when you've got a trailer on like this, it puts quite a lot of weight on the back of the truck and the front gets a bit light. But to be fair, driving down that road as I went round that sort of sweeping right-hander, quite a lot of vehicles understeer there, even if they got the chain and stuff on, and this one actually didn't. It felt pretty planted and decent going along there. And then now, yeah, this muddy section. I had a feeling it was going to struggle a little bit either way. Almost in a way feels like, maybe it's just because of the lightness of this vehicle, but it almost feels like this section's a bit more frozen, like it's not chewing it up too much. However, my rear wheels did get caught on those new, well, not really new anymore, but they kind of added them after I'd done 50 or 60 reviews through here. There's like roots in the middle of the road now that as you sort of dig through the mud you catch on them, which yeah, they weren't there for the first year or two of the game. It did actually climb over them though. It gave me a little bit of trouble, but I didn't have to fire a winch out. So overall, again, fairly respectable across there. There's certainly better vehicles, but considering it's a small lightish vehicle, that actually did alright. And I went for the saddle low like sideboard trailer because I was able to have like a saddle low instead of taking the ramped flatbed. And yeah, driving along there, I mean, it even got up to high going along here in high gear. Every now and then though, as you do hit some bumps, when it gets a bit light on the front, the rear wheels, you almost get like torque steer, where it's just one side grips a bit more whilst your front's quite light, and then it just spins your front end round, points it left and right, hence why just back there I sort of nearly hit a trailer. As well, I've noticed a little kind of bug going on this map. One or two of those trailers I think showing up, and if I go on the like map menu and where I can scroll through my vehicles and everything, it doesn't show me this, it doesn't show me an ANK38 that was back there. It seems to be working on other maps, so it seems to be a bug with this Northport mainly. I noticed it in the Derry special video as well, that wasn't showing up on the map, so once I selected a different vehicle I couldn't just go back to the Derry, hence why I had to drive a ANK over there. But yeah, even that's not showing up on the map now. Climbing up this hill, view-wise, like out the window in first person, it's actually pretty decent. There's that tree I'm just going past now that I kind of use as a good guide point. And because the bonnet of the truck is actually like, you know, you sort of quite narrow, you can see out like the bottom left-hand corner of the window and stuff. So yeah, that again, say driving it in first person, it's actually not a bad little vehicle. You've got decent views and all the rest of it. And even going along here, it was a little bit slow in the snow there, but I stuck it in high gear and it got a nice little boost of speed. It's always a little bit sketchy in my driving down here. It is at the best of times anyway. But when I'm in first person and I'm trying to look around out the back window and all sorts, it can get a bit lively. Yeah, went like through that sort of little stream there, didn't catch its front bumper or anything like that. This mud here slows it down. I mean, I could still just wheel spin it in high gear, but I think in the end, yeah, best off just dropping it into auto. Again, with a bit of the lightness going on, it's sort of terrain like that struggles to find the grip really. Next, the old like rock bridge test thing. I've always liked this section. They should add more like this in various new maps. And overall, like, there's a few times I kind of ping the rock a little bit and it bounces my front end a bit high, but for the most part, I mean, it's gripping, it's steering, I was probably a bit rusty at crossing there as well. First one I've done in a little while, but yeah, I mean, it did it. Certainly seen a hell of a lot worse vehicles drive over there and completely mess it up. I mean, when you get to the snow here, you can see now I'm hitting what would be sort of classed as, say, super snow in this game. It's pretty slow. Again, I was in high, I could wheel spin it, but you're best off in auto, which, yeah, it is what it is. If I was going to be playing on a snowy map, I wouldn't really be getting this thing out too soon. I'd be going, yeah, for heavier vehicles really work a lot better. Like, again, for example, that's one of the places that Derry 15C was pretty good on the snow. It barely made a difference. Whether it was like on snow or just going down a dirt road, I suppose. It's just the fact that Derry 15C feels so slow, yeah, on something just like a dirt road. I mean, going through here, it was struggling quite a bit as well. The 15C actually tipped here. This one, it looks like it's near enough caught. Once I started steering left, it was actually able to climb itself out of there. I didn't have to fling a winch out or anything. But yeah, certainly there's vehicles that have gone through that a lot quicker. And now, just to show you, I need to do a review on this as well. It's a good looking truck. You can see I've got all three, like Dan and that there. When I look on the map though, the Dan's there, but those two vehicles like this Zikz 566A and that 57X, both are just not showing up on the map. And like I say, as far as I can remember, I've only noticed it on this Northport. I did check on some other maps and I've seen my own vehicle appear, so yeah, that might just be a bug going on with Northport. But bear it in mind, because like I say, if you switch vehicle, it can, well, you can't really switch back because your vehicle's not there to select. So as I said, I had to drive an ANK back to where my Derry was just so I could like manually switch over to it. In that Devil's Mud section, not great. I wasn't expecting great things from it because, again, pretty light truck. It actually probably did a little better than I thought. It was still creeping along a bit. I did use a winch to pull myself through there and stuff in the end though. It certainly, I think, would have just got beached if I'd let it. Yeah, little nose test here. Again, not terrible. It's got a little bit of an overhang, but because that bumper sits quite nice and neat and all the rest of it, it doesn't... yeah, it can take like quite sharp changes like that, like little dips. There's another one that can catch some out, and it was alright there. Actually weaved up and around these mountains pretty well. I suppose that's one thing where it... something like this is handy, like, because it is quite a small vehicle. The steering on it's pretty decent and all the rest of it. Going for the rolling test. In some ways it got a little bit lucky because it bounced on like its front right tyre. However, I did roll it quite a few times tonight, and to be fair, it's not bad at getting back to its wheels. You can roll it and, you know, it'll stay on its roof and whatever. But overall, it certainly doesn't feel top heavy or anything. Yeah, I'd put it probably, I don't know, a 7 out of 10 kind of rolling wise, which is pretty decent. It's more, yeah, when they put like a solid slab of weight kind of on top of the roof or something, it feels a little bit unrealistic, and that I'm not too keen on it. But this thing, I think, is balanced pretty nicely. So can't see sod all now. I've just been staring at the sun. The sun's just rising. It looks really nice over the fields out the my front window. It's all like foggy over the fields, but yeah, it's foggy enough you can actually stare at the sun a little bit. I know it sounds stupid, but I was just thinking as I was looking at it, it's like, it's pretty cool when you think, because the sun's shining constantly, you don't really appreciate it, but that is like, for all intents and purposes, like mid-nuclear explosion. And considering how foggy it is outside, also like, yeah, morning mist going on, and I still can't even really stare at it without being blinded. It's a pretty bright son of a bitch. Yeah, this thing climbed up that mountain pretty well, to be fair, about the same. Admittedly, when I first started that, I think it was with the White Western Star, and I was pretty pleased and happy when the White Western Star got up there. There's not many vehicles that haven't, but there is a lot of vehicles that put up more of a fight to get up there, or try and roll and all that. There's another example there, just rolling down the hill, where this thing, again, you can tip it on its roof and all the rest of it, but the fact that I kept landing back on my wheels fairly consistently is usually a pretty good sign. And then climbing up here, this little hill right here gets steep enough where chain tyres can climb that, muds and every other kind of tyre can't. And yeah, like I say, I've got chained on at the minute because I'm on a snowy map. So yeah, climbing wise, balance, it's not too bad up in the mountains. Now on to Quarry. Got a goddamn horse with me. Always be prepared. And this one, by the way, I've kept the chained on, but what I was gonna do was go for a run with the chained and then bring the muds back afterwards. But after messing around down here, I don't really think there's any point in the end. I'll sort of show you why, but yeah, I don't think there would have been too much advantage or whatever either way to be gained. I mean, cutting through here, it's fairly slow, but it is actually still creeping through the mud. Didn't really like that section. But I didn't need to fire out winches and stuff. Release the loaf. And yeah, for the most part, flooring it down here, it's pretty stable, turning's alright. Doesn't get too bouncy or anything and like hit a rock and try and flip over or anything like that, so yeah, overall. Like I say, it's one of them, it's not knocking it out of the park or anything, but it's kind of consistently doing alright in most places. I certainly think as far as all the small vehicles go, it's probably one of the more stable out of all of them. It seems like the driving and the speed, perhaps because of that like custom gearbox, it just feels like it's all relatively balanced. Going like down that steep quarry section did alright as well, which yeah, there's not much overhang on the nose. Obviously it's a pretty short compact vehicle anyway. Grab some cargo, and it was partly I stopped steering there, but you can see the front goes light, but I kind of then kept flooring it, hit that rock, and tipped. Which was like, great. Not a good start. What we need is a goddamn horse. Send him in, and look at him go. He knows those lines. Likes his racing lines. But yeah, I kind of figured this thing would be a piece of cake to rescue, really. The old loaf. He's rescued everything in the game. He's still got a 100% rescue record. But yeah, I imagine this thing, oh, it's not even breakfast. It's like a snack before breakfast. There's another good example, like starts wheeling when I sort of got the power down a bit. Yeah, but the cargo is fairly heavy, so it's usually quite a good test for this sort of thing. Could possibly sit a loaf kind of over the bonnet if you really needed to. I'm surprised I didn't actually. I probably would have if the thought had crossed my mind when I was on the game. And yeah, getting up here, I mean, it starts to turn, but then it just does a big wheelie, tips itself to the side, and there's not really a lot I can do. Cargo gone for the second time, and I haven't even attempted the hill yet. Yeah, loaf of course is already planted up there. Not a problem. Gets his victory horn. So, went for it again. I think this is a bit of a cleaner run from like collecting the cargo up to this first hill. I mean, to be fair, it does it. It's more like, say, when you sort of get a bit of grip and it ups its speed a bit, that's when it tries to do a wheelie. So I kind of knew it wanted to tip the front round. I fired a winch out, hit the a scout fuel trailer instead of the loaf. I did flip it again with the loaf. Had to be a bit harsh with it editing on this one. So, attempted again. I mean, it's things like this though where you soon burn another hour or two longer than you expected, and yeah, yesterday it was already about 9 AM before I even decided, right, that's enough footage. And yeah, I'm already, what time is it now? Nearly 7, it'll probably be 8, half 8. So probably about another 7 or 8 hours tonight editing this and bits and bobs, so yeah. Definitely wouldn't have got it out like by 11 in the morning or something yesterday. Would have been like mid-afternoon. So I fired a winch to the loaf. I think the first time it fired a winch, but it got like the side of the loaf, so the loaf did a U-turn, but he did stop me from tipping. And then I did a winch a bit more properly. Started going up, and yeah, pretty perfect example of like the truck starts to wheelie just because there's too much weight on the rear, and obviously once it starts to lift the weight, there's just, yeah, not enough weight on the front to keep the nose down. Stuck a winch to the loaf though, just to try and keep the nose down a bit. I was mostly trying to get the truck up this first hill under its own power. I was just more trying to use the loaf for, yeah, just keeping the nose down to see if I could do it. I mean, yeah, it gets up to about here. It's certainly, obviously, it's going to wheelie at this point, so it needs the winch from the loaf just to get it down, but then I keep sort of rolling back down the hill a little bit. It's a little bit slow for putting the power back down. Even when you actually start the truck up as well, it's quite a long engine to actually fire up, considering it's a pretty small vehicle. And yeah, when the power sort of lets off, it definitely is a good couple of seconds really before it gives you the power again. That's why I kept rolling back down that hill a bit. So sent the loaf up to here, got him wedged in. What I originally did, I was pulling on the loaf from the truck, but I wanted to do it from the loaf end because I'm loaf trained now. I know how to drive me loaf. And then I was just going to help it, like, because the trailer was sort of beached over the brow of the first quarry hill, but yeah, things happened. Started working. I was like, sod it, drop the hammer, show him how it's done, loaf. So I just kept squeezing the throttle. The old truck behind it's wheeling, it's moaning, it's not happy about it, but loaf don't care. He keeps going, smashes him into a tree as well. Goddamn professional. Get yourself a loaf. Yeah, started rolling back down the hill, thankfully. Fired a panic winch out. There is another goddamn horse chilling there. See, he knows where to wait. He's used to what's going on now. Mobile winch point loaf. I don't know at what point the cargo unpacked. I think because I was tipping back. It's not too happy about it. Now it's a little bit flatter. It's not quite wheeling though. Obviously, yeah, trying to creep over this way. I know if I steer too much, it's going to tip. A few vehicles, like, it's a bit iffy here. It's quite a good test of tipping. Which, to be fair, this would have if I didn't fire that winch out, and even then, it was bloody close. It thought about it for a few seconds. And I mean, it is what it is. There's certainly been worse vehicles. The Derry, for example, did a hell of a lot worse than this. Well, the Derry 4520 or whatever. Even the Derry 15C, I think, was struggling on this section a little bit as well. And yeah, I wasn't expecting amazing things from this. I mean, it is what it is. I kind of benchmark each vehicle. You've got a gut feeling. If they're going to add, like, something that's going to compete with the Taiga and Vorons and all the best stuff in the game, I'm going to have, like, a higher, harsher limit set for it on what I expect. With this thing, yeah, it's a little bit of a throwaway vehicle. Right, I need a loaf. Get up, loaf. Good lad. He knows what he's doing. He was chilling, but he's ready. And I think at this point, I mean, I was trying to get up the hill, similar thing, just kept wheeling, and then it had kind of kicked my truck left or right, so I wasn't really steering up the hill. And then at some point, I got the loaf in position, but I was just curious when I reversed down the hill, like, how well this would do if I unpacked the cargo, so it just sort of takes a bit of weight off the trailer. So I've got the loaf there if I wanted to fire a winch out, and it's thinking about snaking left and right, but it's not wheeling to the point where I just can't steer. Once I was like blipping the throttle a little bit, applying the steering, I was still able to eventually kind of pull the nose end back around to the way I wanted it. And like I say, this is unpacked, so a lighter trailer, but to be fair, I didn't really expect it to be able to get up this hill at all. And even though that is like a bit of a jammy way around it, still, so yeah, not too bad. Overall, it's fairly quick on drinking the fuel. If you're just ticking along, it's not too bad, but the fact that I had to fill it up a few times tonight, on most reviews, unless they're a bit awkward with fuel, I generally don't need to on each little like area I sort of go testing. Yeah, this I refueled from those scout trailers, and then I might have refueled it with a loaf at some point as well. I mean, obviously there's quite a bit edited out. Yeah, it's one of them really. There was just quite a lot of things I wanted to sort of test out and mess around with and get a good feel for the truck. Like I said, various bits I've just had to edit out, otherwise the video would be too long, but sort of work out the main points, which bits to leave in, and kind of demonstrate various things going on. Always go for a little jump at the end. Get a bit of a wheelie on the go. I probably could have not rolled it now. I sort of purposely slapped the handbrake on and turned a bit, because I wanted to roll it over. Pretty much. Send in the loaf again. And yeah, not a problem. Gets his victory horn, and then I just couldn't help myself. I was like, right, I'm off. The sky's pretty blue, by the way. I mean, look at him, drive up them rocks, and they're not even there. Over a little jump, bam, that'll. I think he stubbed his cock on the ground. This is not the first time this has happened. He did stub his cock on a sideboard once. The life of a horse. He's in there pretty good, digging a trench like Kevin and Perry Go Large, to scrape himself towards the sea. But he landed, and he didn't tip. He gets victory horn. Again, pretty blue sky. Had to go up for another one. Climbs them rocks. Look at him go. He has done a rally driving course. He knows what he's doing. Run a tree over. Little jump off here, and I didn't want to crash into the Land Rover and the loaf. Mid-roll, he turns to avoid it, does a handstand, already getting his engine warmed up because he's goddamn professional, lands it. I mean, get yourself a loaf. Knows how to handle his business. Yeah, as for the ice test, I mean, it's a fairly light vehicle. You can see times like that, it will get over the ice, mostly, if you're sort of driving straight. Like there again, it's pretty close. If you start steering once you're on the ice, it pretty quickly kind of punches through. Like there, for example, and yeah, once it sinks in, you're pretty much stuck. It's not really a big enough vehicle. It was able to reverse a little bit. I was looking for my twin steer, and I was like, what is that? I don't remember driving it over here. I was like, nope, that does check out. Probably is my twin steer. It's on its roof. Give the Zikz a little nudge of encouragement. Success. And then yeah, again, like, I was able to drive straight over, but start turning again, it's just too much weight on each wheel. It goes in. So, send in the loaf. Look at him, he hasn't even got his proper tyres on. He makes it over the ice. He's trained for these things. Nice old Tokyo loaf drift. But yeah, he's got his muds on, so he doesn't grip on the ice. But when he needs to rescue things, he digs deep, he finds that grip. As for, this is like doing the high range, sort of trying to do the Jeff special. Because this thing's got a custom gearbox and it's only 6 gears, not 8, it looks like I might have got it to Jeff special there, where it goes mad in the high gear. but it's a little bit iffy. It's certainly not that reliable to do it. This Lake Covd is pretty damn relaxed as far as letting you do it. Like, there's some vehicles that sort of work only here, really, that don't really do it anywhere else. Yeah, this is kind of bordering on that category. Like I say, just because they've reduced 2 gears, it's just not quite got the speed and gear ratios or whatever to allow it to do that. I went and rammed it again with the twin steer for no apparent reason. Jumped it in the water, it actually sinks, so overall I'd say that's probably for the best. When stuff floats, I mean, it's like cool, it floats so you don't take engine damage, but at that point its wheels aren't touching the floor, so you can't really drive anywhere either. Sadly, there's a little glitch going across the river there, but it drove over it no issues. Like I say, because it does sink, it's like that's what that sort of river's quite good at testing, is the stuff that floats tends to float at like the mid deepest point of that river. Yeah, this thing though keeps it planted on the floor. Thankfully I did go and cross another river, so game tried to scam me out some footage, but we had backup footage. And yeah, you can see there as well, overall not bad. Like, it's I think the truck's small enough where it's not going to immediately, well, the current can carry it, strong current certainly will, but it's not like it immediately wants to tip it over. It should just start sweeping it sideways, but if you can still touch the ground and actually keep driving, then should be able to get out of there. And even going up this waterfall as well, not bad, pretty decent effort. Well, actually bumps over rocks pretty nicely. They seem to have got the suspension sort of, yeah, hit the mark pretty well with this one, whereas like the Derry 15C as example, that's got quite firm suspension, too firm really, so it bounces quite a lot over rocks and then you lose your momentum quite easily. I think I might have been able to stay in high gear. That was more, I blipped the throttle at like a pretty bad moment. I think I was one-handed rally special driving because I was trying to sip my coffee and then yeah, it didn't go to plan. But again, if you're not in like, you know, sort of soft boggy terrain, this thing's not too keen on. If you are on like mountain paths and all that where it's a pretty firm sort of terrain, then yeah, this thing actually kind of zips along pretty nicely. So a little jump off the White Valley thing, again with the top speed down the runway, decent because it's still a high range gearbox, but you can tell it's probably a little bit slower than stuff that does have the normal 8 gears. Overall though, jumping off, sometimes you land it, sometimes you don't, unless you're a goddamn horse. It doesn't completely delete itself to pieces every time. Loaf initiated soft landing protocol. I don't blame him. It was a good decision. Yeah, I mean some vehicles, like as soon as you jump off it just deletes themselves no matter what you do. This thing, it certainly takes damage, but it's not a complete write off the second you're down there. And the loaf shows you how a hard landing's done. And even though the loaf did land pretty hard, looks pretty good. Bit of engine damage. That's not bad though, because the top engine in the loaf's pretty delicate to say the least. Yeah, this thing as well, it's only got 3 winch points on the whole thing, and to be fair to it, it's not that difficult at all really to tip, even doing it on the front. It starts to straighten the truck towards me, but it's still just the way its weight is distributed and all the rest of it, it still tips over pretty nicely. But yeah, they probably could do with a couple more winch points, like, you know, just kind of say at the bottom behind like the doors or something. Driving in here, I mean, it's obviously a fairly small vehicle, so it can't go too deep, and because the engine damage is that there's only 100 health on it, overall you rack up that damage pretty quick. So it only got to like 65 damage was the last hit it took before that was already wiped out the engine. Obviously in theory the deepest you can go is like you'll take up to 80 damage. After that, any deeper and the engine just stalls. But yeah, this thing couldn't even really build up to like taking a hit that big, so to send in a loaf, dragged him out of there, got it fixed up. I'm just going to drive off to the next section. Clipped my wheel. It was like, oh my god, are you joking? Blew a tyre, deleted the fuel tank somehow, even though I caught the back wheel and the suspension. So I was able to fix it up with a loaf. I believe, was this the one? He might have had 1 repair point left, but then I brought the loaf back because I wanted to do this next section, and I wanted a bit of roof rack left for that one. Bloody hell, I can't really talk. Well, after doing getting the footage yesterday, I eventually went to bed. I didn't go sleep in the end, so I got back up and then I kind of fell asleep a little bit earlier for an hour or two on the sofa, so I'm hoping I sleep better tonight. I feel pretty good considering I've basically missed a day of sleep again. I think that yeah, the hour going forward and the clocks going forward kind of, it just throws me out a bit every time. So sometimes it takes a week or so to sneak up on me, but it just knocks my already pretty horrific pattern out of whack even more. That it, yeah, sometimes a bit of delayed reaction, but it kind of catches up on me and just throws me out to where I need to like skip a day and try and reset myself a bit. Yeah, going through the water, I went back and got the like water add-on thing for this truck, just because then I could sit the loaf on top and pack it. Cutting through the water, obviously it goes deep enough to where it'll stall the truck, but loaf's goddamn horse. Bit of zombie winch action. Plug him into the winch, floor it, and yeah, drive the Zikz out there. The snorkel goes near enough to the roof. I mean, I'm out of the water now, like it does count. It looks like a little silver helmet thing going on, like a World War helmet or something on top of the snorkel. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, for the size of the vehicle and all the rest of it, it's sits high enough. And like I say, see, this vehicle would just have no way of getting to this island unless it, like the loaf gets them there. He knows what he's doing. He's a trained professional at this kind of thing. So I moved the loaf forwards a little bit, so I put like the two front wheels on the roof of this, and I still had a feeling it is like it's going to be doubtful because I mean, as the Quarry test sort of showed, this thing wheelers when you get pointing up. It was close. I mean, maybe if I'd already like knocked all of those rocks out of the way and everything, I think it'd struggle though. So I jumped the loaf off, send him up there, show him how it's done. Bit of loaf training in action. Wiggle around them rocks, and he's up. Just see a Hummer stuck in the rock still, just behind me. You can see it there as well at the top of the screen, really. And yeah, this thing, once it's not got a loaf on it, I mean, how dare it try and imply that the loaf was upsetting the weight? There's a damn lie. But yeah, it made it up there, and just for doing it, I kind of threw it off this cliff on. Why not? Landed a bit awkwardly, to say the least. Sending a loaf for the rescue. And he knows how to jump. Bam. Loaf rescue initiated. Yeah, going up the mountain, a little bit slow. This first snowy, like halfway up the mountains, like the snow's a little bit deeper. It's probably not quite super snow, but I suppose it does separate out some trucks. This certainly is light enough to where it couldn't really get its foot down through the snow. When you get to this bit, the snow kind of thins out to where it's just sort of scenery dressing at that point. Yeah, motor's up there though. I've still got the chained on, so I can actually go over those rocky, I can take like the rocky line to the top of the mountain. Don't have to keep trying to get each patch of snow. Hit a little horn. And yeah, I didn't bother going down that side and hitting the tree, because there's no way this thing will knock that tree down. Just made it roll down here. To be fair, it took some hits, but so nothing's actually red. I hit this tree. To its credit, it slowly rotates its way around to where it eventually let me fire up the engine, which the Derry, by comparison, when it landed against a tree like this, did the opposite. It rolls to where it like wants to put its roof in the ground. Got it out of there, sort of forced it to roll a bit more, but then I hit another tree, so sod it. We'll call it a day. And yeah, recovered it. Like I said, overall, I thought it was going to be a bit of a throwaway vehicle because it's only a four-wheel thing, you know, there's just bigger, better, more powerful trucks and all the rest of it. But overall, actually not a complete gimmick. It drives fairly stable, and there is certain situations like it is actually potentially usable. So yeah, could have been worse. Could have been better, but for what it is, actually pretty decent, I would say. Money-wise, fairly expensive though. Once I got it upgraded, and I could still add a few other things to it at that point. It was about 144,000. It was about 107 or something, brand new, which again, pretty dear, but it doesn't really matter. I've done the money mod cheat now, so I've got, I can't remember, 50, 60 million, something. Keep me going for a while. Yeah, so that's it really. That's what I'd say is it's not terrible. I've used it for a mission or two on the new map, and like I say, various things. If you send it to boggy situations, it's not going to do too well, but flying along the roads or dirt tracks and all that, it's not too bad. And then just for the hell of it, because it's a fairly new thing, I like this roundabout that you can go flying down there and do a jump. So just a quick few bits of footage of me doing that. I brought this Action thing or whatever, just to, I mean, this thing is definitely way more twitchy and awkward to drive. Like the amount of times I crashed just before I even got to this roundabout. Yeah, that new Zikz 566A is definitely a lot more planted and reasonable to drive. Got a bit of a harsh bounce, like smack the front suspension on that barrier, flick me over to the side. Yeah, I think that Action was a bit quicker though, so I could get some pretty good jumps, but this had a few, it was close. I would have liked to have landed that a little bit more, and we would have made it. Smashed up pretty good, still I was able to squeeze one more jump in. Felt that one. And then one last one. Just to finish the video off, trying to drive up that, and we crash it. Yeah, that's about it for today though. I hope you enjoyed, hope that helps. Thanks for watching, thanks to my Patreon members. Get yourself a loaf because he's a goddamn beast and he saved me yet again. And I'll be back soon.